Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. And dear Lord, please guide us so that we can use writing and journaling as a tool to apply your wisdom and to realize your presence in our hearts, in our lives better. So, my main inspiration for journaling based on the Bhagavad-gita comes from 6.5. We'll not go into all the verses, but I'll just give this as an indication of what it means. 6.5 is basically, Krishna is talking about self-observation. He's saying, Uddhared Atmanatmanam, is elevate yourself with yourself. There are many different ways in which words can be translated. Elevate yourself with your mind. Don't degrade yourself with your mind. There's previous acharyas who translate also that we have a higher self and we have a lower self. Uddhared Atmanatmanam. Elevate yourself with yourself. Natmanam avasadayet. Don't degrade yourself with yourself. Atmaivaya Atmano Bandhur. And the self can be the friend of the self. Atmaiva Ripuratmana. The self can also be the enemy of the self. Now, all this talk of the self can be a little confusing, but let me explain this. See, basically, if we consider this to be the self, so we have a higher self and a lower self. Sometimes this may talk about there's a good dog inside us and a bad dog inside us. Sometimes we talk about the intelligence in the mind. Whatever be the term we may use. So now, another way to understand this is, there is a active self and then there is a contemplative self. So, the active self is what does the various actions in our life. And the contemplative self is what can observe. It can evaluate. It can decide, this was what. Sometimes we get angry and at that time we just act out. And afterwards, some part of us seems to come back and say, hey, why did you speak like that? You shouldn't have spoken like that. So basically, we could say that within us, sometimes it happens that when we are acting, it's almost like the lower self takes us over and the higher self becomes like a tiny presence. It's sidelined. So this is when they say we fly into a temper. And then afterwards, what happens is the higher self comes back. And when the higher self comes back, at that time, we may make amends, we may apologize, and then we feel bad. Okay, why did I do something like this? So there is this dynamic that keeps going on within us at various times. So for us, when Krishna is saying, elevate yourself with yourself, that means use your higher self to elevate the lower self. Don't drag yourself down, but raise yourself up. So, how can we raise ourselves up? One thing is, self-transformation has to begin with self-observation. So, we can observe ourselves. I'll give 3 exercises here for journaling. You can do any one that you like. You can note down the other 2, but you can do any one. I'll give what does this self-observation mean? That means, say, I'm here and I can observe myself from above. Say, for example, right now, we are doing certain things, but we can also go, okay, I'm sitting on this chair, I'm slouching a little bit, I'm sitting carefully, attentively. I'm focusing on this, but we can also observe, okay, I'm finding it a little bit confusing. I'm finding this interesting. So we can observe ourselves. We discussed earlier about this free will and evil. There is a tendency within us, something within us that acts against us, something that sabotages us. So if the tendency to be self-sabotage is there, so when we observe ourselves, a simple form of observation, a daily journal, basically what we are trying to do is, we are trying to apply the Gita, how can I elevate myself and how do I not degrade myself. So a simple journal that we can do is that we note down just 4 things. What was basically in life, if we consider, there are broadly things that we do that are what we can call as actions, and things that happen to us that we can call as events. Now, among the actions, there might be some actions that we do are good, some actions that we do are bad. Among the events that happen, there might be some that are good and some that are bad. So, if we observe ourselves, okay, if I look back at my last 24 hours, what was the best thing that I did? What was the worst thing that I did? What was the best thing that happened to me? What was the worst thing that happened to me? And then, much more important than this making a list is why. Why means, why do I consider this to be the best thing? Why do I consider this to be the worst thing? This was the best thing that I did. Now somebody may say, okay, I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning today. That is the best thing. Now why was that the best thing? Okay, because I was feeling lazy. I thought I would not be able to wake up. But the alarm rang and I woke up. And okay, so what happens is, not only we want to observe our actions, but we also try to understand the values that are driving us. Why do I value this? And what are the worst things that I did? When that person greeted me yesterday, I just snubbed them. Okay, why did I do that? Or why do I feel bad about that I did that? So why? So by that, we started, this person is, I want to be courteous, I want to be polite. I don't want to be a person who, I won't like it if others snub me. So I don't want to snub others. How many of you know the word snub? Okay. Okay. Okay, snub basically means that, if we greet someone, say Hare Krishna, and that person acts as if we don't exist only. That person just looks through us or looks away and goes off. That's called to snub someone. Snub means to deliberately neglect someone, basically. Okay. So, when I was speaking, I was feeling as if you were snubbing me. Your faces were not very... Your faces were looking as if you are watching a foreign language movie without subtitles. So, basically, this is one exercise by which we can start observing this dynamic of the lower and higher self. There's something so the worst thing that I did, what does that mean? That's the time when my lower self took over me. And my lower self did something, made me do something, or did something through me, which I regret. And then what is the best thing that I did? That's the thing, it means my higher self. It was strong and acted properly. So what is the best thing that I did? What is the worst thing that I did? So basically, through this, we can all develop certain capacity for self-observation. So this is one exercise. We could just look back at last 24 hours, and this is one way of doing self-observation. Now, the other is, we'll talk about gratitude. Krishna talks about this in 17:16 in the Bhagavad-gita, where he says, each one of us needs to cultivate contentment. Manaha prasada saumyatvam. That we need to cultivate a cheerfulness of the mind. And cheerfulness of the mind generally comes through gratitude. When we are grateful, then we can naturally be joyful. So, when we want to cultivate gratitude. So, basically, when we see the nature of, if I am looking at myself, the nature of life, when we are functioning, is that there will always be dualities. Sometimes things will work in our favor, sometimes things will not work in our favor. And sometimes we may go through a bad phase where many things seem to be working against us. And generally, when we are caught in the heat of the moment, we are so busy. Okay, this is the opening here for me. This I should do. This is how I should. This is how I get this thing done. This is how I manage this. And this is the problem I am managing this. So we get caught in the emotions of the moment. And because of that, sometimes life can just seem to be like an unending struggle. And we can forget that we all have some blessings in our life. So, in gratitude, we often say, count our blessings. But more important than that is, make our blessings count. Count our blessings means, we actually in one sense make a list. But make our blessings count means, when negativity is coming within us, we remember those blessings. We are able to cultivate a positive emotion when life is bringing negative emotion around us. So it's good to make a list of our blessings, and not just, it's like when we're making a list of what and why. So why means that, okay, I feel grateful that my health is good. Okay, but why do I feel grateful for that? I feel grateful for XYZ. So generally, if you just make a list, the list won't be very helpful when negativity is coming upon us, because that list will not mean much. If we have written some more description, this, because of this is this positivity. Then we'll be able to trigger some emotion. When negative emotion will repeatedly come for us in our life, and we want to get more positive emotion. So basically, a gratitude journal can be a way for us to counter life's negativity. It can be a very powerful resource to cultivate cheerfulness, to cultivate contentment. That's a second journal. So I'll mention specific exercises. So basically the point is, what do I feel grateful for and why do I feel grateful? So this is one way to apply the Gita's teachings. Now, a third one, now I'm going to, as I said, I'll give several exercises, and you can choose whichever one. We'll have some time to decide this. Now, again, as I said, there is this tendency for self-destruction or self-sabotage. We may all have tendencies. We may eat too much, we may sleep too much, we get angry too much, whatever it is. So, when we are observing ourselves, we want to observe with curiosity, not trying to justify, nor trying to judge. First is curiosity. So for example, why did I get angry? Oh, I'm a short-tempered person. That's not a very helpful explanation. Okay, so generally, if we understand that each one of us is a part of Krishna, that means I am also a part of Krishna. If I am a part of Krishna, then if I respect and love Krishna, I need to respect and love this part of Krishna also. So rather than labeling and condemning myself, I'm such a foolish person, I'm such an attached person, I'm such a short-tempered person, I have no willpower, this, that. All these negative labels we are applying on a part of Krishna. And that is not healthy. So we want self-understanding. So rather than asking the question, why did I do this? That's one question we can ask. But instead, ask, what does this do for me? That when I do this, it is serving some need for me, maybe in an unhealthy way. When I yell at someone, what does that yelling do for me? Maybe at that time, I feel powerless, I feel taken for granted, I feel exploited, and this is my way of asserting myself, of showing people that you cannot take me for granted. So there is some need within me which is being addressed. So when I overeat, when I spend too much time watching TV, doing chit-chatting, gossiping, what does it do for me? Okay, I'm feeling bored and it relieves my boredom. Then we can find out, okay, is there a healthier way to relieve my boredom? The Gita says that we have to get a higher taste. But before we can get a higher taste, we need to know what is that taste fulfilling, what is the need that is fulfilling within me. So I can find out that way. That's one more thing we can journal. Ask in a non-judgmental, objective way. That look at ourselves like we are looking at a third person. And try to, what does this do for me? And then what need does it serve? And then as we understand that need, and maybe we can find some other way to serve that need. We can observe and find that. Now I'll mention that these are three broad journaling principles. I'll talk about a few based on what we discussed in this session. Or not in this course basically. So we talked about the difference between goals and results. So we can observe how can setting goals help me and being attached to results harm me. How does it help? How does this harm? So which are the areas where I can set goals? How can I avoid being attached to results when I'm setting goals? What does it actually mean to differentiate between the two of them? So, for example, we may say that sometimes we have a particular project deadline or a submission deadline or something, and that goal is in our mind, but once we start getting into it, we start getting into like a flow zone, we get absorbed. So it's not that we are constantly thinking about the deadline, but we are so immersed in what we are doing that we just forget everything else. It can go for half an hour, 1 hour, sometimes it goes for hours, we forget eating, we forget sleeping. That immersion comes in over there. So that we set a goal, we got immersed in it. Now sometimes after that, the project, whatever we do, it works out wonderfully, sometimes it doesn't work out wonderfully. But that experience I got of that immersion, that experience I got of my capacities, that I can do this, that experience can be very uplifting for me. So this could be one. This is based on chapter 2. Now, based on chapter 7. Now, I'm just giving some broad examples. It's not that later on, whichever teaching of the Gita you want to apply, you can internalize that. So I talked about when we start on the spiritual journey, we can start off with it as a shock absorber. And we can also look at it as a cold transformer. So we can ask ourselves, okay, when I practice my spirituality, what am I looking at for through my spirituality? Am I looking for some shock absorption? That's not a bad thing. Let's say sometimes something goes wrong in my life and I want to calm myself down. So when I practice my spirituality seriously, is it primarily because I have shocks and I want to absorb them? There's distress and I want to take shelter of Krishna? Or is it that for me, Krishna in what areas has my spirituality transformed my goal. So maybe for us, certain things were very important in the past, but those dualities don't matter so much for us now. So in what areas has spirituality become like a goal transformer for? It has become a bigger goal than what my goal is at present, or what my goal was previously. And then, based on chapter 10, we'll talk about the attractive things in the world. Which are the attractive things that are competitors for my attention? Now, how can I make them into pointers? Let me say, okay, I'm attracted to reading these books. I'm attracted to this. Maybe I'm attracted to trekking on mountains. Maybe I'm attracted to this. I like this. I have this hobby. I have that thing. So that is already inside my consciousness. So how can I bring what is in my consciousness to Krishna? What are the ways in which the things that I'm attracted to, can I bring them toward Krishna? So I'll repeat these 6 things once again. I'll summarize them, and then you can see which ones you feel inspired to do. And we'll have about 10 minutes for you to, you can use your notes, you can use your phone, you can write things down, and then depending on how comfortable you feel, you can share your journal entry with us. If you don't feel, you can just share, you don't feel inspired to share the journal entry, you can share your experience about journaling also, what you gathered, what you didn't gather out of it. So basically, the idea is that writing is a very powerful way for internalizing. Because when we are writing, what are we doing? There are some points we have heard, and we are using words coming from inside us to link with those points, to articulate it. So my theme in writing is that in words, we can go inwards in words by whatever we have learned, whatever we feel is important. When we try to put it in our own words, it will go inside. Not only will that wisdom go inside, but we will be able to go deeper inside and understand ourselves better. Okay, so I'll summarize these 6 things once again. First is look back at 24 hours and what are the best thing I did, what was the worst thing I did, and why. So by that we try to gain a better understanding of where my higher self acts and where my lower self acts. The second was gratitude. Gratitude is what, again, and why. We count our blessings and we make our blessings count. The idea is negativity will come in our life, but can we have a stockpile of positivity available for us to access? Then the third was about self-sabotage. That rather than why do I do this? Rather than asking that and labeling ourselves, what do? What does this do for me? What need does this serve for me? And in that way, we can actually go deeper within us. Then we talk about the difference between goals and results. How can I set some goal in my life? Or do I have an experience when I set a goal and that setting that goal enabled me to become absorbed? And then what result came out didn't matter so much for me. The fifth was why spiritual practice. When I'm practicing spirituality, what inspires me? What motivates me? Is it as a shock absorber? Okay, then which shock am I trying to absorb? In what way is it helping me? Is it a goal transformer? So which is a goal, a higher goal that has come in my life? And how inspired do I feel for it? So we may say, oh, I want to develop love for God. Okay, it's a very often it's like a utopian, idealistic concept. What does that mean for me? And the sixth was that attractive things, whatever things attract me, but right now they will be distracting me from Krishna. How can I see some Krishna connection within them? And in that way, how can they become a pointer toward Krishna for me? Okay? So we'll have about, is the exercise clear now what we're trying to do? Third one is? No, so say if maybe I have a tendency to overeat or oversleep. Now if I oversleep, I can just say I'm lazy. Or if I overeat, I'm a glutton. Some people say, Bakasur ka avatar hai, whatever. It's very easy to label people. But okay, no. When I overeat, what are the thoughts moving in my mind? Is it that I feel uncomfortable and I want some comfort and food is giving me that comfort? Is it that what is this doing for me? Is it relieving my boredom? Is it relieving my loneliness? Is it just, we may say it provides me pleasure. Okay, that could be true, but there are so many different ways in which you can get pleasure. Why is this urge for this pleasure so strong for me? Why do I want this in a way that it may even endanger other things in my life? So, if the subsequent form of journaling seem difficult, you can just focus on the first one. Look at yourself and see what are the best thing that you did the last 24 hours. Why do you think that is the best thing? And if not, what is the worst thing and why do you think it is the worst thing? Okay. Any other questions? Is it clear overall?
But how these everything 6 points will help us in writing the words?
Now we're not talking about how to help in writing. We're not talking about writing skills. We're talking about writing as a means for deeper self-understanding. So when we are writing in this way, you don't have to worry about grammar, you don't have to worry about punctuation. Your focus is more on how we can, like inwards. So we want to go inside us and understand ourselves better. Thank you. So your time starts now. You can have about 10 minutes.